Good day everyone, and welcome to this little demo video for the light beams. Now as you can see, I've got a simple shot over here just with Suzanne. This is very similar to the actual download. I just reduced a few things just to make it a little bit easier to get what's going on. So first things first, I want to show you guys that it occludes shadows based on the light direction. So right now there's a sun lamp, as I wrote in the description, that determines the direction of the light. The beams themselves do not emit light and they do not cast any shadows. So just keep that in mind. They're also invisible to the compositor, so don't expect them to show up as cryptomat or object index or material index. They just don't. They do show up in the Z pass, and I think they might show up in the mist pass, but not the way you want them to. So just keep that in mind. So first things first, want to show you guys the shadows. So as you can see, we got two beams hitting the plane over here, but if you look underneath, there's nothing. So let's up this, because it could easily be argued that the beam stops early or whatever the case may be. So let's make it 80, which is the default, and you can see that nothing passes through. There's just a little hinge over here, but that's because of the shadow resolution. Very, very cool, like that. So just to show you that it is dynamic, that I'm not cheating this little section over here, you can see that as it moves, it creates the shadow as it cuts through. Now this is done at shader level. If you don't want this active, you can clearly see everything in the shaders themselves. So let me quickly show you what that looks like. Okay. So if you look at the shader, you can see that this is where the shadows get subtracted. And unfortunately, this does mean that this feature is Eevee only. So just keep that in mind. So you can see there's the shadow subtraction, and there is our ray mix with transparency and emission. Now I do use alpha blend, like I said earlier. Remember, it's invisible to the compositor, but generally you don't composite this kind of thing anyway. You just kind of leave it for the volumetrics to handle and whatever. We are just not using volumetrics because that uses a lot more samples. And of course, high resolution, more memory, etc., etc. So this is a very, very clever way of using 3D shapes to create a volumetric effect. So there we go. You can see that that's the case over there. So I want to quickly show you how to rotate these. So if you rotate it along the Z axis, you can see that it goes all the way around. So this determines the vertical degrees to which the beams are angled. So let me show you from the top. If I rotate along the Z axis, look at that. Just like a fan on the desk. But if you rotate it along the x-axis, it creates like a circular motion. It gives you your rotation along the, I like to say the wind directions, north, south, east, and west. So if you rotate along the x-axis, that's what you get. It goes around and around. So let me show you from the top. There you go. So that's just how you control it. It's because the particle system is set to match the rotation of the beam itself. The reason I said it this way is because generally you would not use these beams in a way that is inconsistent with light direction. For example, if the sun shines through the trees, the difference in angle is so minute that to the naked eye, there is no discernible difference. That's why I made them match exactly within the particle system. That does not mean you cannot use these as a random kind of situation like a disco ball, for example. You can also do that because, I mean, a disco ball generally has these little light reflection beams coming off because, you know, you've got the smoke effects and all that kind of stuff. And when it shines off of that, you get multi-directional stuff. So you can also do that with this particular beam. Just a heads up though, the more your angle is aligned with the beam itself, the more it will vanish. And the reason for that is the Fresnel that's incorporated into it to give you a soft edge along the beam itself. So let me quickly show you that. Look at that. Vanishes the more your angle lines up. So something interesting I added to it is thickness with shape keys, so that if you wanted thicker beams and you wanted a lower number, let's make it 10, and you like this particular look, then you have thicker beams but less numbers. Beautiful, very, very beautiful. I like it. Look at this little part that streams over. It's very pretty. But remember, the same thing still applies. The more you are head on, the less you see it. I don't know if that's consistent with actual beams, but just a heads up. Okay, so let me show you the other one. The other one is not as much of a favorite, but it is still very practical. So with these turned on, you can also see that this one is just as sensitive as the other ones. Let me just get that occlusion plane so I can move it around. Shift C. You can see that it cuts through the light. Look at that. That's so cool. And it's valid for all of them now. Now I also animated these with a sense of turbulence, which is really, really cool. So if you turn it on to play, you can see that there's a very slight volumetric kind of cloud feel that passes through them. Look at that. Very pretty. Now, of course, all of these things are adjustable. For example, I boosted the shader for these thicker beams a lot. Generally, they will not be this strong. But if you want to know how to adjust that, all you do is you check out the shader itself. Let me just open a new slide so you can actually see what happens. It's this one over here with the shadow subtraction. The default is a little bit wider, something like that, which is generally what you want to go for because it's just for atmosphere. But to strengthen it and just make it just have that extra little punch, like in one of the examples, this is what you do. You just slide it a little bit over, but you have to remember that you still want some shadow influence, if of course that is indeed what you're going for. So you can see that it still retains its shadowy influence. Of course, within reason. I mean, if you have transparent objects going through here, you do want it to be a lot more sensitive and all that kind of stuff. But it's functional as is. It really, really is. Because like I said, it's for atmosphere. It's not really for a character to play with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create a disco ball demo with the other beams just as a fun example. Let's do a time lapse. And there it is. That's the disco ball example. So obviously if you put it at a higher value, you're going to get much better in terms of the shadows. So let me just show you that again. It creates a much more even transition. So I'll just render this out and put it on the end of this video and put some frames of this in the description on CG Trader. Hope you enjoyed this one. Have a great one and God bless you.